Oh god, what have I done this time? G'day everyone, welcome back. What I've always liked about this game is how 12 years after its release, with millions of people playing concurrently, you can still mess around in a creative world for a few hours and make something completely unique. For example, a farm that uses turtles and lightning to automatically harvest balls. But in this case, I've transitioned to the end realm where there are other intriguing commodities to farm, like this obsidian farm, which makes use of the end pillars and withers to harvest 240,000 obsidian an hour. This specific design is from Cubic Meter, and you can find the link to it in the description below. Similar to this masterpiece, we will also be utilizing the end pillars, but just not this big fella. Instead, we're going to settle for the humbler, thinner pillar with a cage on top. Why the cage? Well, the cage is our renewable source of iron bars, and today, I'm going to show you how I made a machine to harvest them. First of all, is an iron bar farm really all that useful? Well, if you saw the thumbnail, you already know that this supposed farm makes 32,000 iron bars an hour, which is equivalent to around 12,000 iron an hour. Now, the most efficient iron farm module 1.17.1 can produce 485 iron an hour, meaning you'll need about 26 modules to match the speed of this iron bars farm. However, the iron bars farm does come with some obvious drawbacks. For example, in order to initialize the resummoning process, you need end crystals, 467 per hour to be exact. Luckily, end crystals can be indirectly harvested through Enderman, Blaze, and Ghast farms, so if you've got the infrastructure, this comes as little to no cost. But, unlike iron farms, an iron bar farm requires a player to be around in order to keep the farm loaded and to place down the crystals. And of course, how could I not mention the fact that iron and iron bars aren't interchangeable? Sadly, you can't craft iron bars and convert them back to iron ingots, or even smelt them. Another thing to consider is, what are iron bars even used for? Well, just spitballing here, they can be used in zombie villager curing stations to reduce the time needed to cure each zombie villager. Of course, they can still also be used aesthetically, for example in mega bases, perimeter walls, or even in water streams. But, they also have a rather unique trait. They are one of only 5 survival obtainable blocks that are not destroyed by the Ender Dragon. So iron bars aren't all that useless, at least compared to balls. So now that we've outlined the adequacy of the farm, we can move on to the design. It all starts with the seed. Only 1 in 5 seeds can make a maximum efficiency iron bar farm due to one important detail. When you resummon the dragon, the end pillars surrounding the end fountain also regenerate, starting with the easternmost pillar, going clockwise around until the beam reaches the final pillar. And after that regenerates, the Ender Dragon respawns 100 game ticks later. Fortunately, if you destroy any of the end crystals before the ritual ends, then the dragon won't respawn, but the pillars will. So this all means that if your seed doesn't have a cage pillar to the east, then you'll need to wait significantly longer per cycle for the cage pillar to regenerate. As demonstrated by this graph, the shortest wait time is only 140 game ticks, while the longest is as high as 460 game ticks, which is more than 3 times slower. Now that we have worked out the efficiency of our seed, we can begin looking at other potential problems with building a farm around an end pillar. For example, all blocks within a 10 square radius of the end crystal will be removed or replaced, as well as a square bounding block surrounding the pillar extending down to Y66. Another problem with the pillar-based design is the resummoning system. This process can be quite expensive, costing 4 crystals to begin the ritual. But if you use a machine such as this one designed by Cubic Meter, you can get away with only using 1 crystal per cycle. This system works by allowing the player to place down end crystals at a specific frequency, and then, once the ritual begins, the end crystal is relocated to a distance where it can be safely detonated. So, we've got a system that automatically regenerates the end pillars, and we know the conditions of each pillar, so what's next? Well, now it's the fun part, blowing crap up. We obviously can't use withers here to destroy the iron bars, as the wither cage will simply be eliminated upon the regeneration of the pillar. Akin to how we're gonna inevitably decimate the cages later on. We can use side accelerated TNT launched in a parabolic trajectory angled at the center of the pillar. The launcher will need to be situated at least 10 blocks away from the end crystal so it doesn't get removed upon regeneration. Now, this is one of those instances where you could be smart and mathematically calculate precisely where to launch the TNT from, but in my case, I just used trial and error and a bit of elbow grease to work it out instead. So from this position, we're able to remotely explode about 30% of the cage. And worse yet, we can't even launch a second TNT, as the first is just going to destroy the items left over from the initial TNT. So what now? Well, if you detonate the TNT in the exact center of the pillar, on top of this bedrock block, then the TNT is closer to more of the iron bars, and this now removes about 90% of the iron bars. Brilliant. What do you know, we now have a brand new problem. How do we get the TNT to detonate on the inside of the cage if there's no space for the TNT to get in? Well, my friend, I was once in your exact position and also only thinking in 3 dimensions. In order to find a solution to this issue, we need to look at this with a temporal dimension as well as 3 spatial dimensions in mind. Now, if we rewind time a bit, you'll notice there's a certain window where the iron bar cage hasn't generated yet, and the TNT's trajectory intersects with the inside of the cage. So this means that if we can get the TNT to enter the inside of the cage before it generates, we can then detonate the TNT in the center of the cage right as it generates. And after about 3 hours of tinkering with the timings later, we have a working design that's able to take out about 90% of the cage. Of course, the items are still going to get stuck on top of this platform regardless of how much we bombard it with TNT, so instead we're going to switch things up a bit and use water to sweep off the items in a specific pattern. Now, in order to remove every item evenly and reliably from all possible positions on the platform, we first need to place a water bucket in the center block. This helps a bit, but as you can see, the corners of the platform remain untouched, as well as the center block itself. But we'll get to that in a bit. Let's also place water down in each one of these corners too. Now, to remove the item from the middle block, we can drop the water down from above, and as the water recedes, it sweeps off the item. To replicate this method using redstone, we could use a dispenser with a water bucket situated above the bedrock. Here, the water initially moves downwards, but then takes an additional 10 game ticks to flow outwards and to the corners. The water then holds its shape as it flows down, and because of the TNT placement earlier, none of the water gets obstructed on the iron bars that would normally be situated on the lowest layer. So, what's left now? Item collection? No, slow down, mate. We need to make this reliable, like 100% reliable. While this fancy new TNT system certainly looks cool, every so often it leaves a few iron bars hanging around, and there's an exceedingly small chance that it can leave this iron bar here. Like, seriously, it's so rare, I had to time-lapse for a couple hours and even then I couldn't get it. While it may not look like much, this bar can obscure the trajectory of the next TNT, which results in it only removing about 30% of the iron bars again. If this happens, the TNT won't be able to enter the cage on the next cycle and the farm will effectively come to a halt. To negate this problem entirely, we can launch a second round of TNT. This will clear the remaining 5% of the iron bars. And, if we time it right, we can also get the TNT to detonate in the center, right as the water recedes. The keen-eyed among you would have noticed that the items aren't getting destroyed by the TNT. This is because the TNT is detonating one block above it on the bedrock, so all the blast rays that head downwards just get subsided by the bedrock. However, each item entity does take 1 damage from the blast, but each item has 5 health, which means each item effectively has 4 cycles to clear the platform. Finally, we have the rudimentary task of item collection. Here, we just use water sources surrounding the pillar at Y65 so it doesn't get removed upon regeneration, as well as a wide platform of water as some iron bars can spill over the edge quite fast. At each corner, the items drop down and are sent to a storage facility elsewhere. And that's pretty much it. There's a few quality of life features such as this platform cleaner, which removes any scrap iron bars on the platform, and also a crystal supplier, which resupplies the player with an end crystal each cycle. To run the farm in survival, first check if there's any iron bars remaining on the platform. If so, then flick this top lever. Now just wait a few seconds, then hit this bottom lever to switch on the farm. And just wait for the water to flow down and hold right click. Anyways, that about wraps it up. There's a world download in the description as well, which has got some more info on the farm. And yeah, thanks for watching this far into the video. That's super cool of you. Have an awesome day.